I'm super excited. Okay, so if you haven't joined us before, or if this is your first time, or if you weren't able to join wholly last time, oh, hey, Lefford. I'm so glad that you all are here. Thank you for coming. This is our third installment of the Arbinger Book Club. So ABC family, I'm happy you're here. Before we jump into all of the goodness, so today we're talking about chapters 6, 7, and 8. But I wanted to share the schedule for upcoming sessions and just one little asterisk for you guys. So we've got today, yay team, we've got the one in September, and then we might be shifting that a little bit along with the one in October. So it'll be the same week, but a slightly different day. So I just wanted to put that on your radars as soon as we know exactly the date. It's my fault. Blame me. I'm the problem. It's me. So as soon as we get that fixed, you guys will have updated schedule and we'll get all of that sorted. So if it is your first time here, want to make sure that you know how to navigate the platform. A lot of you are already in the chat, so that's awesome. Thank you. I'm so glad you found it. If not, it's all the way on the right side of the screen, and you'll see that you have multiple options there at the top. Chat is where everybody's hanging out right now. We have one of my colleagues, Amy, in the chat as the Arbinger Institute. So if you've got any questions, concerns, by all means, throw it in there and she will jump in and handle that to the best of her ability. The other thing is, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A tab in the top right. So you kind of move along. You've got chat, messages, docs, Q&A all the way on the right. If you have a question, by all means, throw it in there. And then there are going to be times as we go through that I say, hey, anybody want to raise their hand and come on stage? Don't sit and like raise your hand because that ain't going to work so well. So instead, at the bottom of the screen, all the way on the right, you should see something that says raise hand. So click that. That'll notify our folks backstage here to bring you on stage, and then we'll be able to chat, talk through whatever it is that we're talking through. And then last but not least, because I love me some breakout groups, breakout rooms are something that we utilize quite a bit here. If you look on the top of your screen, all the way on the left, you're going to see the Arbinger Institute logo. And then you're going to see the stage, which is where we are now all together. Yay, team. And then you'll see breakout rooms along there. So when I prompt you, we will jump into breakout rooms. You're going to click on that. Hold on, let me get you the next view. And it's going to take you to a screen that looks like this. A lot of you all already know how to make this work. You got to click the little plus sign that's in the breakout room in order to join. We have a plethora of breakout rooms. So if the ones at the top are full, by all means, keep scrolling to the bottom and you will be able to jump into one there. So certainly, if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to throw them in the chat, throw them in the Q&A. If you are in light mode, which I know some of you are, whether it's due to VPN, bandwidth, whatever that might look like, that can inhibit your ability to raise your hand and join. Don't stress it. If you can't join a breakout room, don't worry about it. We usually end up having an impromptu one here back on stage, but it will be on you guys to join the breakout rooms, and then we will send a little ticker tape saying, come on back from the breakout rooms, and that's where you'll click stage in the top left. So those are kind of your two primary areas where you're going to be hanging out today, is in the chat on the right-hand side, and then going back and forth between the stage and breakout rooms up top. So with that, let's get into it. Don't mind my color-coded crazy. I like it a lot. So today we're talking about chapters 6, 7, and 8. And I have to tell you, so the first chapter, when we're talking about chapter 6, getting out of our own way, this chapter, I think, is one of the ones that probably hits me hardest, if I'm being for real. So the story of Chris Wallace is one, I've heard it from him directly. I've heard it via video, and I've read it in the book, and it's one every single time. It is something that really, it really hits home. I have a family member, and there's a lot of his story that really resonates with me. It's something where, I am in an interracial marriage. My husband is Black. And when he and I started dating, my relationship with this family member really started to deteriorate. And it was something where I blamed that family member from the get-go. It was something where it was his fault that the reason that our relationship was deteriorating, it was because of his beliefs, and it was because of the way that he was treating me and my husband, that now we could no longer have this relationship. And it was probably the first time when I heard Chris's story, I took a moment and I had to pause. And because my husband's incredible. If you guys ever get to meet him, I definitely married up. But it's one of those things where it never bothered him, because he was seeing this family member in the way that Chris kind of got to in the end, right? It was just like, this person is who they are, and we understand that, and we're going to love them anyway. And it was something that I couldn't get to. So I don't know if you guys have ever had a similar struggle. I don't know if you guys have ever kind of thought along the same ways, but one of the pieces in this that jumped out to me, it was on page 51. And so he's talking about kind of after the fact, after he had this conversation with this 17-year-old girl. He says, we're so convinced that we're so convinced that how we think and feel about other people is caused by them, he says, by what they have or haven't done, by how inconsiderate they have been to us, or how judgmental, and so on. But a 17-year-old young woman taught me that this wasn't true. I see people the way I see them because of me. When questioned whether he isn't just giving his father a pass for the hardship he caused, Chris doesn't flinch. No, I just stopped giving myself a pass. I don't know if y'all were as convicted as I was when that came through, but that was a piece that I was like, man, because so often I think it's really easy for us to go, well, bad behavior, right? And so if I start to see this person as a person, I'm letting that bad behavior slide. But when he said, no, I stopped giving myself a pass, I felt some type of way about it. I'm not going to lie. And it was one of those in particular with the relationship that I had with this family member. I was trying to think back of all the times that I acted, spoke either to him, about him, with him differently. And I was giving myself a pass for that bad behavior because of, all of the things, right? I don't know. I don't know if you guys had the same thoughts, but what I would love to do is we're going to jump into breakout rooms. And I just want you guys to discuss Chris's story. What stood out to you? What was something of interest to you? I see, Krista, that you highlighted the same section as me, but like, what jumped out? Like, was there anything that really resonated with you, or anything that you took issue with? Anything that you were like, yeah, I completely disagree, or anything that gave you an aha moment? I want you guys to have some time to dig into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 12 minutes, because, round numbers are not a thing. We're going to take 12 minutes and we're going to jump into breakout groups and go talk about this. So what stood out to you as part of Chris's story? So go ahead and click that breakout room tab at the top, jump in, and I'll meet you guys back here. Okay? Be free. And if you're stuck, just let me know in the chat. I should have like the Jeopardy music going or something. Do, 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 do. Is anybody still here and not in a breakout room? Anybody stuck? Throw it in the chat if you are. Nobody? Am I all alone? This is so dangerous because that means I can start singing to myself. Oh, Lefford. Hey, my friend. Can you join a breakout room, or do you just want to come on stage so I get to see your face? All right. Do you know how to raise your hand? Can you raise your hand? You better have your camera on. Oh, what happened? Hi, Tammy. Oh, yeah. Lefford, try and raise your hand again. Hi, my friend.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome job. Now I could probably join a breakout, but I said I need to talk to my sis because You know what? I laugh because I was gonna write in the chat, but my spelling righteousness wasn't working. But my self-righteousness, when I
Yeah.
feel like somebody did something to me or mine, I'm putting furniture and painting the walls of my box.
Mm. You getting cozy.
Yeah, real cozy. So yeah, I feel you on that thing. So
Yeah. So what jumped out to you about Chris's story?
the thing that jumped out to me about Chris's story is just that if I perceive somebody did me wrong, um, and I try to be the bigger person, I'm coming from, you know, even though you don't deserve the love that I'm giving you, I tried. Now it's on. And so
Mm.
what jumped out to me is that again, I've been giving myself a pass for years about stuff because I tried. Somebody's treated me wrong, obviously, and I'm just gonna be a mirror of what you've done to me versus how I should be seeing somebody. They got issues, they got stuff going on too. So that's kind of what jumped out to me. And it was funny when so many people highlighted stuff. Um, that thumped me in the forehead. I'm what about giving this person a pass for doing you wrong? No, I've been giving me a pass.
I love what you said though about being a mirror for how they were treating you.
Or
Right?
my
Like just
perception of how they were treating me.
yeah, well, fair. Okay, fair. But I think that that's because that's so hard, right? Because a lot of times it's like we get into this notion of like deserving. Who deserves better treatment? Who deserves? And like we become, judge, jury, and executioner in terms of the way that we're going to treat somebody. And it's 100, like we base it like what they've done. We now have the ability to determine whether or not they deserve good behavior, bad behavior, nice behavior, mean behavior. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you because that notion of it wasn't me giving the other person a pass, I was giving myself a pass. Like I kid you not, my stomach dropped into my toes. Like it was that kind of feeling.
Oh wow.
Mm-mm.
Well, we've
Mm-mm.
talked about this before. This book has pointed to me a lot of times that I'm a good Victoria. I'm a good guy. I'm trying to be good and trying to help people and trying to be. So when somebody comes and does something at me, I'm justified in the way I behave because naturally I'm just a good person. I wouldn't do that.
Never. Never. And isn't it amazing how easily we can tell ourselves that story?
Yeah.
I mean, it rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
like that just rolls so much off the tongue. And don't you agree? Don't you agree?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Because then let me go get everybody else to believe the same way about how bad this other person
Right,
is.
right.
Man.
And it's interesting to me because the cool thing about having people in your life that love you, that they'll give you a pass about, and they'll give you permission to be a jerk to somebody because they did it. And so, because Lefford, you're not like that. You're that guy that is forgiving and loving, and I like that because I'm agreeing with him. I'm trying to be humble, but I'm agreeing. And so not only am I giving me a pass, I got people in my life that'll give me a pass also. So this was just powerful for me.
Mm.
But again, I don't want to dominate the conversation. I just one, I wanted to see, and two, the amen corner was going when y'all were doing that.
I'm just glad I wasn't alone. I mean, it was
No,
one of those, if it had been crickets in the chat, everybody was like, wow, that's terrible for you. So sorry.
you
Like,
too, Victoria. I don't know. We'll pray for you.
right. That would have been rough for sure. But yeah, I appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you, Lefford. It was so good seeing your face.
Continue to great
All right.
job that way.
Thanks. All right, Linda, let's see. Linda, you added something that I really liked. Oh, hold on. I'm trying to scroll up. This is always dangerous. Let's see. There we go. I've tried to be very intentional to remove deserve from my vocabulary. And if I treat someone better than they earned, they don't respond in a like manner. That isn't for me to pick up or own. Ooh, I like that. That's good, Linda. Kathy has the same issue with fair. That's a place with fries. Kathy, that might be my new favorite phrase. Oh gosh. Okay, Krista, I'm glad you came back. That's awesome. Amalia, I'm glad you're here too. Amalia, you joined us from Cyprus, if I remember correctly. Oh, Angie. Okay. Well, we have our own little, mini group of 4 or 5, however many we are. Do any one of you want to come on stage and kind of share your thoughts or multiples? Go ahead and raise your hand if you do. I'd love for you guys to jump in and we'll kind of do like our own little mini breakout group. Don't mind me and my bubble water, as my kids call it. Hi, Jorge. Come back in. Should be in the bottom right-hand side of the screen. There should be something that says raise your hand. Oh, try and do it one more time. All right. Jorge, what you got for me? You're muted if you're talking. Maybe. We might be having some technical difficulties. Krista, were you able to find where to raise your hand?
Oh, there we go.
Hi, there you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay. Sorry, I'm not technical at all.
Oh, it's all good. We won't
had
talk
everybody
about the terms.
too big, so I didn't have any of the stuff on the bottom. So I had to do yeah, when you read that sentence or that paragraph, so I had read this book a while ago, so last night was revisiting it, and I have to say it's something that I should probably leave on my desk and revisit, but that paragraph is exactly what I had highlighted. And I can tell you, I absolutely understand what you're saying about as far as I thought I was being the bigger person by basically was placing the blame on the other person of, I don't know why they're not getting this. But that's them. I'm not going to judge, and I'm going to do my best to try to make myself understood. And then when I turned it around, and this was with a colleague, and when I turned it around, made a world of difference. But it takes a little bit because I don't know if they're necessarily suspicious because it's a different tactic, if you will, or if it's more or less not sure what. Yeah, suspicious is probably the right word. But
you're giving them something different to respond to, right? So
right.
I mean, they're used to you always showing up a certain way, and now it's a little bit different, and that's
right.
But jarring sometimes, depending upon how drastic it is.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think it was that drastic, but apparently it was. So that was definitely some self-deception. Yeah.
Oh man, yes, that'll get you for sure. No, thank you so much for sharing, Krista. I appreciate that. Jorge, do we have you now? You're still on mute if you're there. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Are you able to come off mute? Doesn't look to be working. While we try. Oh, you're showing unmuted. You're showing is muted on my side. Oh, goodness. Do you want to throw it in the chat, kind of what you're thinking? I think, it's one of those where it was interesting, Krista, just when you were talking before, there's a sentence in here. Let me see if I can find it. I know I find it. Oh, yeah, here we go. It was on page 54. Towards the bottom of the page says, but eventually he was able to turn some of his attention to his father, not to blame him, but to understand him, which was, I think, kind of jumped out to me as what you were talking about before, right? It's like, it's so easy to blame. And when we choose not to, it's a completely different person for them to respond to. It's one of those, this family member of mine, we're not really big on sharing our feelings with one another. And so it's not like we really processed the change, but all of our, every way that we started to interact, every way that we started to just, kind of shift became different over time. And I don't know that, I'm sure he recognized a difference. I certainly recognized a difference, but it was more comments from other people people being like, oh, wow, I mean, it seems like you guys are like so much better now. It's like, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I love that, Jason. How curiosity lets us suddenly so many different ways of seeing things now and from our past. Yeah, I listen, if I really wanted to go through some heartache, I could take a lens to many troubled relationships in the past and just kind of look at through the lens of how I was part of the problem. It wouldn't be a very fun time, but I'm certain it would be illuminating. Okay, is everybody back? Back-ish? You guys can just throw in the chat like you're here. I've returned. What I would love to do here-ish. Good. Awesome. Thanks, William. All right. We've got excellent. Thank you guys for letting me know that you're back. Does anybody want to come on stage and share what they talked about with their breakout room? Would love to hear from some groups just in terms of what jumped out to you. What you thinking? Don't all jump at once. Come on. We're family at this point. I'm sure that somebody's interested in coming on. I think we got one. We got a couple folks. Excellent. All right. Sorry, guys. It takes a second for everything. All right. Neil.
Hello, Victoria.
Hi.
Welcome from Baltimore.
Oh, you're just up the road. Excellent.
No, you're down in D.C., I think, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, Northern Virginia. I won't claim D.C. for any D.C.
Yeah, I'm the
poppers.
same. I'm actually in northern Baltimore County. So.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So what do you and your group talk about?
One of the things that came up, it came out of your story, but several of us kind of have had experiences, and most of them with parents, where at some point we kind of take this moral high ground where somehow we're more perfect than our parents were, or more perfect than, in your case, a family member or whatever, that somehow we're better, and not take responsibility for what we need to take responsibility for, and not take responsibility for our own faults and our own flaws and the things that, how we're treating that person or how we're blaming them or whatever it is. Those are flaws in ourselves. Those are not, and they didn't cause them. We've caused them ourselves. And we haven't taken responsibility for those. And then we use those somehow as, oh, well, that's okay because they were wrong to begin with. And thus we're right to do this. When no, two wrongs don't make a right.
It's a tough pill to swallow, isn't it?
It is a very tough pill to swallow. But the key is you've got to forgive and then take into account they're not perfect. Your parents weren't born perfect. In your case, this family member was in no way born perfect.
Right.
And they have their own baggage. They have their own stuff. And maybe recognizing that can help you to find a place where you can meet.
Yeah, no, I love that, Neil. And I think something we talked about in our little kind of impromptu group is the idea of deserving. And I think so many times we can get caught up in like who deserves what, when, how, all of that kind of stuff. And, we tie forgiveness to deserving in a lot of ways. We're really, as we've talked about before, I don't have to necessarily jump that massive mental hurdle to forgiveness if I can just start to get curious. Because ultimately, like that little element of curiosity is going to trigger something where I can go, okay, so you're a human. I might still not agree with you, or I might still not like you, but like you're a human and I can at least recognize that, right? And
the cool thing about curiosity is it's very, very hard to remain angry when you're curious.
Isn't that, Neil, put it on a t-shirt. Yes, all day. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. William, over to you. What'd you and your group talk about?
Well, a couple of things that stood out is that line on 43 that says, so things going inside your head, he's not responsible for those, you are, and they're in your dreams. That was huge. And then I followed up with the group talking about the fact that he ruined his life, you're ruining yours. So thinking about how he was, he might have done some bad things, but you're the one that's continuing to stew on it or go through it or blame. I see people the way I see them because of me. So taking responsibility for it was huge. And then what I really liked was the line, but I don't dwell on his mistakes anymore. Once he realized that his father had messed up, but he was ruining his life by processing through and having to live in what his father's life was like. The way I used to fixate on his failings as a way of denying my own failings.
Man,
those were pieces that were just amazing, that we kind of talked about. And we had some examples, real life examples, which I think is a great thing about this group, are real life of examples of how we've had to do these things. So it was great to connect.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that, I think you guys touched on a lot of the stuff that probably really rang deep for me as well. And I know when we talked about it kind of in our little group here, it was one of those, I think this is like one of those gut punch moments, right? Because, and you guys were talking about it in the chat, like he didn't ruin your life, you're ruining your own, right? Like you touched on that. Jason put that in the chat as well. And then I love what Kathy said here, that we have to be careful because we know our own intentions, but we don't get to prescribe how others receive whatever, our actions, our behaviors, our words, any of that. And it's so easy to ascribe intent to others, right? It would be really easy to ascribe intent to the actions of my family member, to say, well, he's doing this on purpose. It's because of, his belief systems. Up until maybe like 6 months ago, I hadn't even bothered to ask the question. So it's just, yeah, it's one of those. I appreciate you sharing that, William. That was really, really great. And that's a great point. When does a 21-year-old listen to a 17-year-old? Yes. Listen, they were much wiser beyond their years than I was at that age. That's for sure. I was definitely baffled by the fact that a 17-year-old had that level of insight. I thought that was awesome. Okay. Thank you guys so much for sharing your thoughts. I love that. I hope that breakout was good and impactful. I feel like we could do this for like hours, but I don't. Y'all got stuff to do. I get it. So the next part that I wanted to jump into, and it was something, it hit me like in the face in the beginning of chapter 7. So they're talking about the lure of inwardness. And I was thinking back to when I was, a people leader in my last position, and the number of folks that I had on my program and the number of people that I had to be responsible for. And I never really thought about the impact of inwardness in terms of cost. But it talks about this on page 57. Within organizations, every person who is burning time and energy seeking justification is doing so at the expense of the contribution he or she could be making to the overall results of the company. The energy draining, time wasting, silo creating effect of this justification seeking is one of the most debilitating of organizational problems. In terms, thinking of it monetarily, like it's astounding. And so the question that I have for you guys, and I just want you to kind of throw it in the chat here. Have you ever had a moment where you have realized that the cost of your inwardness was so great that it was a trigger or an invitation for you to turn outward? Like, is there something, or if anybody be even willing to come in front of the group and share, is there ever a moment that you were like, this is just not worth it? Or this is so detrimental to what we're doing? Or, this is like, we could be doing so much more. And then realizing your role in it, right? So, I think for me, and a lot of you guys have heard my story about, the last time when I was in my previous position, when I had the realization of just how much I was in the way of my own people because of my need to feel like the servant leader and to feel like the savior of my people and to feel like, when I had that moment where I went, I am stifling individual growth, professional growth, career development, innovation. Like, it was like I got hit in the face with a brick. And because of that, it was really dramatic. And we talked about it a little bit. Krista talked about kind of the jarring effect of when people change, when we give them somebody different to respond to, and moving from a position of inwardness to outwardness. Like, I think my team looked at me and was like, are you having a crisis? Like, what's happening? Like, you're a completely different person Monday who showed up on Friday. But it was in that moment that I realized like how much we weren't doing for our customer and how much I was getting in the way of my people growing and developing. Like that was my aha. This is a massive cost for not just the organization, but for my customer, for the mission, for my people individually. Like it was tremendous. Let's see. Amy, we took this from anytime in the BMW. Oh, I like that. The BMW is not spent contributing. Yeah, I like that. Listen, guys, we're going to start our whole line of t-shirts with the stuff that you guys are throwing in the chats. This is spectacular. Jason, anger usually doesn't get me outward, but it does get me to take a walk, and that helps me let it go. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, that's great. Any brave soul want to come on and share their thoughts? I won't badger you about it, but just want to give you an opportunity. Maybe not. Okay. All right. Well, so the last piece that I wanted to get to, let me get my sticky note. So in the first session, if you guys were here with us in the first session, we talked a lot about how, like, from an inward perspective, our outward behaviors can be, I think we were talking about Chip and his team. We were talking about Ms. Tam and these things that seemed surprising or unusual or things that we weren't necessarily, wouldn't necessarily be logical, right? So the example I think about is Chip and his SWAT team, where the SWAT officer is making baby bottles, right? People are looking at him like he's kind of weird because it's weird and it's surprising and it's all of that kind of stuff. So one of the things that I loved was the story in chapter 8 about the debt collection company, and specifically how they approached it completely differently. So on 68, there was a line that jumped out to me, and they were talking about the company CFS2 and the way that they structure their reward system. It says, in fact, CFS2 rewards its employees not for how much debt they collect, but for how many free services they can provide to their clients. I was like, what? And then it says the line right after, from an inward mindset perspective, all of this seems crazy, but the results speak for themselves. And then later it goes on to talk about the San Antonio Spurs and how, they do things differently and they are selfless with the ball in the way that they pass. And the things that they talk about is how this creates not just success, but sustainable success. So what I would love to do is we're going to go ahead and jump into breakout sessions again. And what I want you guys to talk about, brainstorm, leverage the experiences and expertise of the people in your breakout groups. What is something you or your organization could do that would be crazy outward, right? And what might be the impact of that? And what might that look like? Like, I want you guys to kind of dream in the realm of the possible based on what you're reading here, because another line that I love is on page 69. Inward mindset people and organizations do things. Outward mindset people and organizations help others to be able to do things. So what could you do to invite crazy outwardness? Whether it's you personally, whether you have the ability to make a change in your organization, whether it's just you within your family, right? What could you do that might invite crazy outwardness, as we'll call it? We're adding this to our t-shirt line. It's going to be great. Okay, so with that, head to breakout rooms. We're going to take 15 minutes because I really want you guys to dig in and brainstorm. So with that, breakout rooms, ready, set, go. And if you're stuck in the main session with me, let me know in the chat. Not stuck. Stuck is negative. Opportunity. Kathy, what are BHAGs? BHAGs? Is that how you said BHAGS? Kathy, you and the one-liners today. I tell you what, I'm loving it. Big, hairy, audacious goals. Yes. Okay. Kathy, are you able to join a breakout room or are you hanging out with me? I'm telling you, a line of t-shirts from Arbinger Book Club coming your way. I'm loving it. I'm gonna say, if anybody is still in the main room, oh, your video might crash. Oh, fun. Okay. So then maybe you can't come on stage. But if anybody else is still here and wants to raise their hand, come on stage. Let me know your thoughts. What BHAGs do you have that could invite crazy outwardness? She may not be able to because she said her video might crash, but we can give it the old college try. Look at that. Okay, Kathy, I gotta tell you, you were cracking me up. Like, I'm loving your lines. Like, I'm loving it. You speak my language.
This used to get me in trouble in elementary school.
And now as an adult, it's just gold. It's just gold.
Yes, absolutely. So no, I worked in a much larger school district and took a job in a different school district after 27 years in the other organization. And as an organization, we did a lot of outward mindset training, and we started at the top from our superintendent down. We took it into our departments. My old technology department I was part of, every single one of us went through the training. And now I'm starting over, and I have a technology department of my own. I am now the director, and the biggest struggle I find right now is even asking for what would make your life better, even acting in an outward mindset manner. Folks are suspicious because of previous things that have been done unto them. We often talk about doing 4 people instead of 2 people in my team, and a lot of times they don't necessarily, and we don't necessarily see that somebody else is viewing it as being done to them instead of for them. And so those are just kind of thoughts that all of this brings to mind. We actually have on our agenda, after school starts up, we're going to break into smaller groups and do the BHAG brainstorming. What is, what does the dream look like? Because I've had some of the best success with some of the worst ideas, the craziest things, the things that never, you're like, oh, we can never do that. And you're like, well, no, we can't do that. But what if we did it this way? And so we're actually exactly doing this right now in my team.
Great. So then in terms of what are some thoughts that come to your mind in the beginning? Because I know obviously you guys are going to dig into it deeper, but do you have thoughts already?
Actually, the one thought that I keep getting is that trauma from previous directors is what we're needing to heal and overcome from right now, because they don't trust the ask it. They don't trust that the invited input is actually a real invitation and not like lip service.
Yeah. And
so building that back up is interesting. I do have a co-conspirator. He has graciously been very curious about outward mindset. I have passed along my book, and I would love someday when I retire for him to just move right up into this position, because he is an amazing human and he does a lot of these things natively. We just need a common vocabulary, and so that's been super helpful too.
How long have you been in this role?
I started in January.
Oh, okay. So it's fresh.
Brand new,
yeah.
And in a brand new school district. So I changed from someplace where I had all of the roots and all of the relationships and all of the common vocabulary and all of the history. I have none of that now. So I'm having to rebuild relationships and learn the history. And it's been fun and interesting, but it also really underscores how an outward mindset can be viewed suspiciously, particularly in cases of, for example, this school district. The entire top has rolled over in the last 2 years.
That's a lot
Every
of
single
change.
position, a new person, from the superintendent, deputy superintendent, HR director, business director, every single one down to my level. And, you know, I'm three levels down. So we've got the top, the executive, and then the directors. And there's not a single one that's left from 2 years ago.
Wow. That's a lot of change. And so then, you know, I heard somebody phrase it this way once, that we gain trust by the spoonful and we lose it by the bucketful. And so it sounds like you're in the spoon mode trying to fill that back up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you have a
Mm-hmm.
sense of, you know, because you said that sometimes outward mindset actions, we'll call them, can be viewed suspiciously. Do you have a sense in terms of like how you're going to overcome that?
Well, I mentioned intentions earlier, and I've gotten very deliberate with saying my intentions right up front, because if I say I am doing this with the intention to be helpful, and my team is saying it is not helpful, it is giving X, Y, and Z bits of extra work, saying fantastic, that has already given us the opportunity to have an exchange. And then leaning into the hard stuff. I've made mistakes. I mean, we all do, but I tend to make them publicly because our department is pretty, you know, public facing, and just, you know, being real honest with yourself and like leaning into the hard stuff has been interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think that transparency is going to be huge for sure. You know, they talk about vulnerability being a strength in leadership. And I think certainly you have an opportunity there. I mean, it sounds like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you've got a good handle on where your folks are and what that might look like. So I'm excited. Like, is that weird? I'm excited.
Yeah, well, and I'm super lucky because I have a team that wants to serve. I mean, we do technical support, so we are already in a service mindset, which a lot of tech departments aren't, which is really weird because that's the land of no, but we are the land of yes, and how can we make it happen? But they haven't had the support to be able to do all of that consistently. And there was so much public fighting with like the school board and the superintendent and the everything. You know, they've gone through, they had one director for many, many years, and then they went through two in a very short order. And so it's just rebuilding that trust. And particularly in education, people tend to have very long-lived careers in education. And if you can dig in, you can just outlast the last one. In my previous school district that I was at, I had worked for every single technology director that was there up until the current one, because then I left, right? And some of the mindset really was, I'll just put my head down, I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and I'll outlast this trend, this director, this person's ideals. And so, and it feels like it's very education specific, because a new principal will come in, they will change everything, they will move in 3 years, and then the next person wants to put their mark on things.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying not to do.
I think that's great. Yeah, because I was going to say, I love what you're bringing up about, you know, really we're talking culture shifts, right? And sustainable culture change. And Vicki, you alluded to it in the chat in terms of that you're having the opposite problem, right? So that you had this really great environment, this really great culture, and they moved on. And now you guys are going through a rough period. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because I feel like I myself have been in both sets, right? So like where it was great and then everybody left, or like you're coming in and it's brand new. Thank you so much for sharing, Kathy. I really appreciate that. But, you know, I think like you guys are touching on a subject that's so near and dear to my heart, because I think one of those things that was constantly ringing in my brain when I was leaving my last position is like, how do I make this sustainable, right? How do I make this something that is not about me, but it's just the way that we do business? And that's why I love what they talk about when they're talking about the San Antonio Spurs, because they talk about on page 70, it's without relationship excellence, task excellence, and superior results are built on the feet of clay. And so basically they talk about how because of their relationship excellence, they're able to achieve task excellence and sustainable superior performance. And that sustainable piece, like that's what I think about when you're talking culture shift, right? For better or for worse. Your team in particular, they don't have relationship excellence to stand on. They don't, task excellence, yes, because I'm sure they're highly proficient at their jobs, but they don't have the relationship excellence that we're craving in order to make that a solid foundation. So instead it's on clay. And so I think, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I think last time somebody wrote in the chat, because I put it in a sign on my wall that said, culture is what we celebrate and what we tolerate. And I have to remember that, because we also, look at things, we're trying to do things that are measurable, and our measurements will drive what the actions are. And so if we want to close a bunch of tickets really fast, I can close tickets really fast. I just go in there, I poke a button, they're all closed. But is that what I'm truly measuring, or am I trying to measure the satisfaction of somebody getting speedy service and having felt that they got good service, or they were listened to, or whatever? And so being very intentional about your measurements with that culture as well can inadvertently drive it the wrong direction.
Well, what I would love to invite you to do is much like the debt company did. Like, it wasn't about how much debt they collected, it was how many free services, right? So like, is there another metric that you could roll out for your team that would invite outwardness, that would, because I agree with you. So often I feel like it's like, just anytime it's like, well, have I solved your problem? Right. As opposed to like, do you have what you need to be successful?
Right.
So I love that. I love that you're even thinking that way. Like, go, Kathy, go, Kathy, go. I think it's going to be awesome.
Done it before me. I'm just copying the good stuff,
No, but I mean, I think that that's great, right? Like, I think that that's outstanding. And to the extent that we can embed that into our systems, like, oh my gosh, because then you're just setting your folks up for success. But awesome.
I think the thing that we're going to go to is a 3-question survey at the end of every ticket. About feelings. Did you feel heard? Did you feel like you got a solution that met your need? And how do you feel the timeliness was? Because again, we can have the best of intentions and we can have a 24-hour rollover response, but if somebody feels like that 24-hour response isn't fast enough, because it's not about how quick we do things, it's about how people feel we're doing things quickly. And so I think that's the direction we're going to go, but we are still working through that with the team, because I could come in and say we're going to do things this way, but that's never received well.
Yeah, we got to build that relationship, right? So that way there's that trust that you were talking about before. Thank you so much, Kathy. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure talking to you. Vicki, I love what you just put in here. I just feel like I'm learning, and that I can't be the guide to get people going. I feel like I have been in that situation so many times. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because it's hard. It's really hard because you feel like you're what we call like fire hose mode, right? Like, so it's all of these things going on, and you can see, like, for me at least, I might be learning a whole lot of new technical things, but I feel like I can see the root of people problems pretty quickly and pretty easily, but I don't necessarily have the relationship capital, like Kathy was talking about, to affect any kind of change. I love that. I love that we're all on this journey together, if I'm being real, because those things that, like, even now I struggle with, because I'm still relatively new to Arbinger. So I've been, full-time with Arbinger for coming up on 3 months now. And so there's a lot where it's like, I feel like I'm still learning. And I don't know that I can necessarily be the guide in any particular way. So I all that to say, I feel you. And it's one of those that I've found probably greatest traction in the almighty power of getting curious. That's really, I can't tell you the amount of information that I have learned, bless them, from our marketing team, because I know absolutely zippy about all things marketing. And they have been so kind and so patient. And so with that, like, we've been able to build this really awesome partnership with me knowing absolutely nothing. And, just being willing to get curious. So all that to say, I think, getting people, being the guide to get people going and learning from them at the same time are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Because I think it's just one of those things that a lot of times we feel like we have to know in order to lead. Whereas, some of the people that I have, like, I will follow you down a dark alley, like those types of relationships were people where I actually knew more about the subject matter than they did. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm talking nonsense or if I'm even making any sense. But it's one of those things, like, that's kind of the thing that rolls around in my brain when I see your comment. But anywho, how much time do we have on our breakout sessions? Or is everybody back? They're done. Are y'all back? You guys are just hearing me ramble on about nonsense. Okay, is everybody back? Throw it in the chat if you're back. You're back. Okay, thanks, Amy. Appreciate you. Good looking out. All right, so does anybody want to come back and share? I would love to hear some thoughts, ideas, things that you guys were like, whoa. Anything along those lines. I would love to just for anybody to come on stage who's willing to share what their group talked about. Because I feel like this is the meat and potatoes, as we might call it. Come on. I would love for you guys to raise your hand. Come on. Because I guarantee there was some goodness happening in those breakout sessions. If it was anything close to the one that we had going on here. Barbara.
Hi, Victoria. So I'm just going to say we just had a really great conversation and so many contributions to the discussion. And I just, a couple of things. And I think Giselle, like you hit head on in that whether we have an inward or an outward mindset is our choice. Like, it has to be our choice. And whether that's on a large scale, small scale or whatever. But I talked about for my experience, like, to get the conversation started, and I'll make it short and stuff, but I work for the Idaho Department of Correction, and just the mindset that our leadership is taking is more towards, like, the Norway model of corrections, which is the best in the world for getting their people back out in the community and being contributing members and not having people continually coming back. So that recidivism and stuff, but their whole mindset is like, you, as a responsible citizen, it's your job to go figure out what got you on that track in the first place, get it all fixed and taken care of, and then get back out here and be a contributing member of society. And so they follow what's called the principles of normality, and that is making their correctional environments, including their prisons, as normal as possible. So they're not like a pseudo environment. It's like officers and residents cook their meals together. They eat together. It's as close as what reality on the outside should be, so that they're not in this altered environment and then trying to figure out how to put all of that stuff to play. But it really, it kind of goes along with that, seeing everyone as human. And
that's fascinating. I've never heard
that. It's awesome. It's such a great journey to be on, and just seeing our leadership lead the way, but just how so many people are resistant to that because, and like one of the things I shared, not just in the world of correction, but other fields that I've worked in, is it's like people have this need to have an other. Like, there has to be an other so that I can feel better about myself. And I think that's sometimes a big contributor to the inward mindset, is I want there to be an other, because then, like Chris's story, I can justify everything that goes wrong, or everything just if I don't feel good about myself, there's still an other that I can say, wow, well, okay, well, then my I'm better than, or my life is better than, or whatever. So anyway.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing, Barbara. I really appreciate that. I'm going to look that up, the Norway model. Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we've got one more in the queue. Al.
Yep.
Thanks, Victoria. I just wanted to add to what Barbara said. I think I just love the initiative that you're doing. And I think what we need to do at times is step back and say, not only what you're doing is going to affect recidivism, but I would imagine it's going to affect homelessness. It's going to affect things that we don't take the time to think about. You know, as somebody who's in the lean business, you know, it's the 5 whys. And it would be interesting if you just look down and you know, you can't manage a secret, right? The data will set you free. But I can just imagine the effects, intangible and tangible, that you got going with that. And it's just, it's an admirable task. So thank you for sharing that.
No, thank you, Al, for jumping in. I appreciate that. I think you're absolutely right. I think, you know, a lot of times if we looked at kind of what Barbara was talking about as emblematic of an outward mindset, we talk about the ripple effect, right? And so like we might be looking at, you know, 5 feet in front of us, 5 meters for my metric friends, you know, in front of us in terms of what we're trying to achieve objective wise. But I think that's the beauty of it, right? There's always this wonderful ripple effect all the way down the path. So thank you guys so much. This was always so much fun. Like I absolutely adore hanging out with you guys. This is, oh yeah, absolutely. This is great.